Hello, everybody. Happy Midday Manna. Thank you all so much for your patience, and just for being so gracious and kind. That is one of the thorns of this digital ministry that we may face from time to time. You never know when our friend, the Wi-Fi or the internet or whatever it may be, decides that it doesn't want to work. And so, thank you guys just for your patience with us and for tuning in to Midday Manna, although it is not at our regular scheduled time. All right. So today, I want you to go ahead and tag your friend in the comments. Go ahead and tag the person that you sit beside in the virtual sanctuary and let them know that the doors of the church are indeed open. As you all know, we have been walking through for the past 6 weeks this devotional, Bread for Life, written by our very own, the Reverend Dr. Joshua L. Mitchell. Out of Richmond, Virginia. And it has literally been life changing. If this devotion has changed your life, I want you to put it in the comments. I want you to tell me if there was a particular week or if there was a particular day, or just what fruit it has brought forth in your life. Okay. And so today, as we conclude our Bread for Life devotion with today's Midday Manna, we are on day 3 of section 6. Section 6 is asking the question, what's next? Okay, what's next? And so as we conclude this devotion, there is day 4 and day 5 that I'm gonna hold y'all accountable, and I want y'all to go back and finish. But on Friday, we won't be going through the devotion. And then next week on Monday Morning Manna, we will be all done, which is a little bit sad. Maybe Dr. Mitchell will write a part 2 or another devotion that we can walk through, since we're going to be done with Bread for Life. But since we are wrapping up the devotion today, I thought that it would be great if we could bring on Dr. Mitchell to have a conversation with me about the book, but particularly, more specifically, about today's devotion. Okay. For anyone that tuned in to Monday Morning Manna on this past Monday, you'll know that I kind of expressed my complicated relationship with the book of Ruth. And I was just saying how, I was hoping that Dr. Mitchell would provide a different perspective for me to be able to engage with the text, which he has done so. Let me say that he has indeed provided a different lens and a different perspective. And there's some things that I also want to lift up. There's some things that I want to have a conversation about. And so I hit up my friend, my mentor, my brother in ministry, and asked him to join this conversation with me, and let us just, dialogue, have some conversation about today's devotion. So if you all could welcome, give Dr. Mitchell a warm welcome as I bring him on. Okay.
What up? What up?
Hey,
What
hey,
up?
hey. Uh-oh. Can we
Can
hear
you hear
you?
me? Can you hear me?
I can. That was my fault. See, I'm having all types of technical difficulties today. God is so
God,
good.
God is so good. God is turning it around for you right now. Come on and lift
Oh,
your hand.
yes, Lord. Thank you, God. I receive it. All right. So, listen, I want to jump right in to day 3 of week 6. First, I want to say thank you so much just for everything that you poured into this devotion. It really has changed lives. I know we have talked about offline just the impact that it has had in my life, as well as the testimonies from Altogether Ministries. But I just want to give an opportunity for the community in the comments to say thank you, because we had a conversation before we started, but now that we've gone through the book and we've walked through, I want to give them an opportunity. So tell Dr. Mitchell thank you in the comments as we jump into this week. All right, you ready?
Ready?
Okay, so today's devotion is day 3 of week 6. It is entitled Initiative and Integrity. Initiative and integrity. And the scripture reading is Ruth chapter 2. And so on Monday, we talked about Ruth chapter 1, where Ruth decides to stay with her mother in law, Naomi, and, devote her allegiance to her mother in law, right? And I loved how on day two, Dr. Mitchell, you talked about Orpah, because I think a lot of times that, we have villainized Orpah for her decision to go back home. But I loved how you said that could have been the best option for Orpah. That could have been the best decision. So as we walk into chapter 2 of the book of Ruth, this is where this is where the saints be getting excited. This is where Ruth meets Boaz and Lottie Dottie and all of that, right? It is no secret that as a evolving womanist theologian and scholar, that it is quite difficult for me to read this book for multiple reasons. As a womanist, we sometimes challenge the text, and we ask questions, we interrogate the text, and we provide different lens and different perspectives. And so that's kind of the conversation that I want to have today. First, let me say, I think you did a phenomenal job of, excuse me, of lifting up the integrity and the character of Ruth without necessarily talking about Boaz. I really appreciate that, because I think that a lot of uh, Ruth's character and her assets is often attributed either to Naomi or to Boaz, to someone else.
That's good.
But I appreciated the fact that you lifted up just her attributes for herself, right? You talked about in the book how she did not wait for anybody to give her an opportunity, but she was a go getter. She was a self starter,
Mhm.
right? And she sought out an opportunity to make some shade, to make some things happen for herself, or she would have been hungry. She could have died. No telling what would have happened. Um, and so I want to ask you first, before we get into the conversation, just about what lifted up for me as I was reading through this chapter and reading through today's devotion. I just want to ask you what was coming to mind for you outside of what you already wrote, but what made you approach the text the way that you did, being able to highlight her characteristics?
That's a great question. And again, I'm always grateful to be here with all together and with you, Pastor T. So let me say, for one, we had 6 weeks, and it was important for me to ensure that we centered the voices of the sisters within the book. Um,
Mhm.
what I find is it's not always balanced. And let's say we did four males that we followed and two sisters, even that is in balance. But the goal was to try to ensure we had stories of women that were centered, strong women that were centered. So we looked at Ruth and Naomi, and we looked at Esther previously in the book, and wanting to walk them through not just the day, but a whole passage. So that was really the mindset. And the reason we went with Ruth and Naomi is because it really is a story of having to walk into some forced choices, having
Mhm.
to navigate that very real question. My life just got flipped upside down. What do I do? What is the
Right.
next move? And often we just go straight to we go from the death to here comes Boaz looking for your
Mhm.
ass, and we don't have time to sit and kind of get into the in between. So that was that was the heart behind it. In this case, though, and we were looking at chapter 2 today. I think I enjoyed reading about the things that he said about her, because I really have this thing I'm trying to communicate to people about the importance of our witness, um,
Mhm.
and the importance of you showing up consistently, often and everywhere, in a way that people can speak about you in rooms you don't show up in. And so that's really what the heart of it for me was on this day. It was listening to the way that he talks about her. And I quoted it in the book. I'm not looking at it right this. Let me look at it, pull it up. But where he starts talking about, I've heard about what you have
Mhm.
done for her. I've heard from my overseers about the work you're putting in on the fields and
Mhm.
all that good stuff. I think for the demographic that I was seeking to serve, young adults, and older youth, just the importance of, man, like this world runs on relationships, and often who you are, you don't get a chance to defend it, and you don't get a chance to present it in some rooms. But who you are may precede you, may walk into rooms before you get there, and the importance. So that's why it's called um, integrity, and that piece
Mhm.
around
Initiative.
initiative.
Mhm.
So I wanted to, I really wanted to highlight, like, part of the reason that there's even this opportunity to do the Kinsman Redeemer. And I too have some thoughts about the Kinsman Redeemer um, narrative and how we have
Mhm.
interpreted it over time. But that doesn't even come into play if not for her story and her character consistently being communicated before he meets her. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, I'll stop there for now. I'll stop there now.
I appreciate that. Is verses 11 and 12 of chapter 2, where in the NRSV UE version it says, has been fully told me. He's saying, like, I've heard about you, essentially. Word on the street is
Yeah,
fill in the blank, right? And so she does have a great reputation with Boaz, the reason why he's even willing to show favor upon her. Um, so I think I'm very grateful that you provided that context for me personally. I read it, I read the devotion, but you articulated it in a way that I understood your heart behind it. And I'm appreciative of such. And hey, I emphasize it, right? Like I reinforce this idea of we do have to be mindful of our reputation. And in that same vein, one of the things that, I'm gonna just act like we having a conversation and just
ain't
let the
nobody watching. We just talking.
let let the viewers just be a fly on the wall. But in our day and age, one of the things that I'm frustrated by specifically with women. That's my social location. I'm a heterosexual, cisgender Black woman in this yet to be United States of America um, that grew up in the Black church. I have been church all my life, right? And so I can only speak from my intersection with my lived experiences. And one of the things that I have become frustrated with is how this text and this story of Ruth has been used by older women in our society to perpetuate the ideologies of patriarchy amongst the
Mm,
up and coming generation, right? And so that's why I said on Monday that this story of Ruth and Boaz is not really a love story. I won't say what I said to you personally, but I will say that there is some harm in the text. There
mm,
is some objectification of a woman's body, policing of a woman's body. Um, um, if this was 2025, I don't know if this would have been legal. Okay.
mm,
Like,
mm,
this is modern day prostitution, if we want to be
mm,
honest, when we go into chapter 3. And the reason why I allude to chapter 3 is because chapter 2 is really a setup for chapter 3 for this, her taking the instruction of Naomi. If we read through the text and we understand um, that this is some metaphorical language that is being used in the text as well. And so when I was reading your devotion, there was one part that I thought about, just again going back to Black women's experiences. You said she leverages a provision in Jewish law that allows widows, the poor, and foreigners to glean leftover grains from harvested fields, right? And you gave a scriptural reference. And I celebrate that, and I'm like, yeah, it did. That was a practice of survival,
mm.
and two things can be true, right?
Absolutely.
Um, at what point as Black women are we going to be tired of accepting scraps?
Mm,
And and so my question was like looking at our ancestors, right? There were some we watched here in class. We watched Eyes on the Prize, and in that movie, no, excuse me, we watched. Forgive me. We watched the Ma'afa movie, which is based on the Ma'afa conference out of Brooklyn, New York. And in that movie, the house slave was in charge of basically setting the standard and reinforcing the rules and regulations for the new incoming slaves. And she basically was like, look, this is the way that it operates. Don't do this, don't do that, because if you do something wrong, then it's all of us are going to get got, right? And so she's abiding by the rules that have been set by her white slave master. And I think about how that idea of this is the way it's always been, and you just need to fall in line and oblige. If every person within slavery had have operated with that mentality, we wouldn't have had a Harriet Tubman. Like at some point, there were individuals, our civil rights leaders, right, who rise up and say, yeah, this is the way it is, but I'm no longer okay with accepting this just because this is the way that this has been. And I recognize that on Monday, you talked about forced choices, right? The
Mhm.
lesser of two evils. Um, I recognize that either decision is risky. If it all has a cost, right? If I'm
Mhm.
going to abide by the law of the land, if I'm just going to follow tradition, at what cost? What am I sacrificing by falling in line? And if I choose, to bump up against the social norm or bump up against the way that things have always been, I'm also paying a price. There is also a risk, that I'm willing to take. And so I love the fact that you talk about initiative and you talk about the integrity. And my question to our viewers, and my question again, specifically to those living in the margins, I want to
Mhm.
say it that way, not just Black women, but to those living in the margins, is what do you want your reputation to be? Right? Like, and at what cost? And I'm not saying that you sign on the dotted line and say, oh, I'm a buck up against everything. You and I have had these conversations as a woman in ministry, right? There are some
Mhm.
things that I'm willing to push up against because it's patriarchal and I am advocating for myself and I'm establishing agency. And then there are some things that is not worth it, right?
Mhm.
I'm a swallow my pride and I'm a wear the all black and I'm a, you know, whatever is necessary for the sake of being in the space in order to bring about change. Because if I buck up against it too much, I'm not even in the space, right? And so it's a tension that has to be navigated and managed. But I don't know, Dr. Mitchell. I just think that this story of Ruth has really been used to keep women in a place,
Mhm.
and it has been used. Uh, I said it earlier, to perpetuate patriarchy by women,
Mhm.
by women. And it has been used to romanticize this idea of only a man can redeem me. Um, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts about everything that I just said.
Uh, it's a lot, and I want to be thoughtful in response, because I value this space and this conversation because I don't I don't have to live in certain realities because of, particularly when we talk about ministry, we talk about Black church space. In that way, I am privileged, and
Mhm,
I am writing about a woman's experience and have not had to live in those shoes. So these conversations are helpful. And I often feel like, um, the little kid at the table. I'm just listening. Like I'm just listening and
mhm,
learning. Um, and so I'm thoughtful as we start this conversation. In some way, so let me start by acknowledging and agreeing, that she did in fact work with the scraps. And I love this call to action around, there's got to be a different way to engage. And then we don't have to accept that. And that is what to me makes her heroic in some ways.
Mm,
Because as you were talking, the thought came to my mind, she chose to play the game.
mm.
And what I mean by that
Ooh.
is she had a crossroad. She could have said, I'm going home. I'm going back to my
Mm,
people. But she walked into Jewish tradition and life with sobriety in some ways, and maybe not knowing what all that would mean, right? But there's a point in the story where she could have gone at it another way, and it would have been the unknown. It would have been the unknown, but I think for whatever reason, she decided I want to stay with Naomi, which means I have to engage this game. I have
mm,
to engage this Jewish system. And I was able to survive even in a system that wasn't set up for me. Isn't that the
mm,
story of Black folk in America? Isn't that the story of those whose land was taken, right? It is
mhm,
and so when I think about ministry, when I think about sisters in ministry and women in ministry, I've often had conversations with sisters where we get to this place. It is,
mhm,
hey, um, you can go out into the unknown and create something, and that something may change the world. That something may be a space that is not confined to brick and mortar, that is not
mm.
confined to constitutions and bylaws, that is not confined to doc culture. What up, doc? Ain't got none of that. And I
Yeah,
can't tell you where that road leads. I
yeah.
don't know what happens after chapter one if you go that way. Or you can choose to enter into a system that you know is a game that was not created for you, and figure out how to game the system for your survival. Um, and I don't think that it is fair, and I don't think that it is right, but I do think she had agency
Mhm,
because the choice was open to her in chapter one. And so I think that, again, we don't always know what's on the other end of that, but I celebrate her. Given all the dynamics that you said, it is not a love story. Um, I don't know if we're going to talk about chapter 3 and 4, but
I don't got time.
I don't know how much time we got. But she has to, or she is coached into doing some
Mm,
things that, if we read this metaphorically, are potentially problematic. Would you say might be illegal in 2025? Um, and she could have gone home. She could have gone a
yeah.
different way, and she chose to play the game. And so I celebrate her initiative, and I'm going to see if I can make this game work for me. I'm gonna see if we can make bricks without straw, right? And so that strength, that initiative, considering those
Mm.
dynamics, is what's sitting with me in this moment.
First, I want to say I am very grateful that you are secure enough in your identity, your masculinity, and um, your anointing, really, to be able to engage in this conversation. I don't take that lightly. Not everyone is able to do that. Sometimes people let their ego. What did was it Erica Badu? She said, "I'm sensitive about my stuff."
That's what she said. You better call Tyrone. She an artist, and she's
She's an
sensitive.
artist. Right. And so anytime that, we produce something or put it out into the world, we are really being vulnerable and subjecting ourselves to people's opinions and feedback. Right.
Mhm.
And so I want to say thank you for just even being open to dialogue about this, and not be so defensive or, combative, and us not be able to engage in this conversation. Um, as we wrap up Midday Manna today, I always feel like there needs to be a part two, but amen, praise God. As
I'm
we
down.
wrap up Midday Manna today, I want to, for our viewers, I want to lift up this idea. We kind of talked about it on Monday, this idea of binary thinking. Um, we talked about on Monday of two things can be true at the same time.
Mhm.
And even with everything that's going on in society right now in our country, in our government, right? It's not an easy answer. I heard a pastor say this weekend is nuanced, right? Um, and I think that same concept can be applicable to this text. You use the example of, you can go and start a different type of ministry, or you could take the road that I know. And when you said that, I chuckled because I'm doing both,
Mm,
and it's not easy,
mhm.
right? It's not easy to create a holy hush harbor, ecumenical digital community where we are not confined to bylaws. I don't have a deacon board that's policing me at times,
Give
right?
God
We have
glory.
we we have we do have a board, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's totally different. And we talked about this on Monday. I get to be uh free
Freer.
freer than sometimes I can be on Sunday morning when I stand in the pulpits of someone else's church, right? And I have to be respectful. Um, I still preach truth to power, and I have to be mindful. I might word something a little differently on Sunday than I would on a Monday morning manna, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so with that being said, just I think that's a work that we constantly have to do as a people, as a culture, is realizing that it's not black or white, it's not hot or cold, and we're going to get spewed out of God's mouth. Sometimes it is lukewarm, sometimes it is gray, um sometimes it is she had to play the game for the sake of survival and saving her life, and how could she have had agency and autonomy even while playing the rules of the game, right?
Mhm.
um so I think it's a conversation that's worth continuing to have. I want people, though, to know that there is another option, that they do have agency to consider, what if I don't,
What if I don't?
right? At least think about it. Because I know a lot of individuals who an option wasn't given to them, and they have self-sacrificed for the
Yeah.
sake of survival because they didn't know that there was another option available, right? And so if you're watching and that is you and that resonates with you,
Yeah.
and the system that you have subjected yourself to is harmful, mm, it is suffocating, it is uh self-sacrificial, as I said. I just want you to consider that there could be another way. um Go ahead, Dr. Bishop.
And and I know we got to get off. You have the ability to leave Naomi at any time.
You.
Like, she was not married to Naomi. She was mentored by Naomi. And so if you find yourself in a system today that is problematic, that presents you with outcomes that are unacceptable to your ethos and who you are, you ain't married to Naomi.
That's good.
You can still go home.
That's good.
And that doesn't mean going home is easy, but it might save your life. It might save your dignity. It might save the little you inside that is going to question, should I have made this decision on a threshing room floor? You can still go. You can
That's
still
good.
go. Um, and there's life on both sides.
Mhm.
I see in many ways in Naomi, uh, my grandmother who grew up in you know, the 1900s early or the late 1800s. Baby, I'm giving you that mother wit,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, this is that this is that color purple kind of passed down
Hmm.
black wit, which I think in some ways was a form of protection and survival, right? And sometimes we can look at it as we're giving because we had to, and others, this is the best I know to offer you.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to have space to forgive those who presented our best and didn't,
Yeah.
even if it were problematic,
Mhm.
'cause they didn't have
Yeah.
a better way for us. I've had to forgive mentors that didn't have a better way for me. They gave me the best they could, and I found later it was problematic, right? Um, and never forget you're not married to Naomi, whoever that Naomi is.
That's
What else?
good.
What
Yeah.
else?
Well, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think that this was a great conclusion to Bread for Life. Also, Dr. Mitchell, real quick, let us know about this daily challenge that you are currently doing on YouTube, the podcast, all the things. Give your unapologetic spiel real quick.
Unapologetic spill. Yeah, so we're still walking through the book. We've started a daily bread challenge. We've connected with 15, 16 churches around the country. And so each morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard, we are on my YouTube page at Joshua Mitchell TV. You can subscribe and get the notification to let you know that we are on. Just 15 minutes, but we're building a rhythm of devotion, daily devotion, and interacting with the word. And very, 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 very likely it will become just a rhythm that we're going to continue to follow. I've heard from several young people just, I need something. It's kind of a daily something that grounds me in the word and prayer. And so that's what we're seeking to do. You can do that on YouTube. We also have it in podcast form, Bread for Life. The podcast with Pastor Josh. It is that same daily pill. And all of those links are on my link tree as well, linktree.com/Josh in pursuit. So we hope to see you in the morning.
Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you just for the work that it took and how you poured yourself into this devotion. And I pray that God will restore unto you all that you have given.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, I'm going to log you off and give a few announcements. All right. So, thank you all for tuning in to Midday Manna today. Hopefully, you enjoyed the conversation, the dialogue. Um, I want you to, if you did not get this book, I want you to go back and get it. Okay. It's not too late. It's not too late. The link is still posted here in the Facebook group, but it will only be posted through this weekend because we have concluded the daily, the challenge. We have concluded the book. We are going to take down the link because then our discount will be over. So if you have not gotten the book, go ahead and snag the link here in the Facebook group so that you can get the link. All right. Also, we are still in our All Together in Africa campaign. I love what God is doing and how we are moving forward, progressing. But listen, we still need your help. Okay. We still need your help. We are looking to start making some purchases and booking some things at the end of September, September the 30th. And so we are trying to reach a certain goal by the end of this week. So if you have not went over to givebutter.com/ATR in Africa, or Zelle us or Cash App us, I want you to do so. On our Give Butter page, there is a live update of all of the seeds that have been sown, so that you can see our progression. No seed is too small. Do you hear me? No seed is too small. So give us your Starbucks money, give us your Chick-fil-A money. But I also want you to stretch your faith and really so sacrificially as well, into what God is doing for All Together in Africa. All right. And so I thank you all for tuning in. I will see you all back here on Monday morning at 5 a.m. for a Monday morning manna, but we will also have Friday morning devotion, time to be determined. So I love you all. There's nothing you can do about it, and I'll see you soon.